I pressed my hand against the cold metal bench and whispered to no one. She's not coming, is she? At 74 years old, I had learned to be invisible. But not like this. Not sitting at a bus stop in heels that pinched my swollen feet, clutching a gift no one would ever open, waiting for a daughter who had already forgotten I existed. 6 hours I sat there. 6 hours while my only child danced at her wedding reception, surrounded by everyone she called family. Everyone except me. My name is Maggie Sullivan, and this is the story of how my daughter threw me away and how I finally learned to stop letting her. If this story touches your heart, please subscribe to our channel and follow my journey to the very end. Drop a comment below telling me which city you're watching from. I want to see how far my story travels. Now let me tell you how it all began. The phone call came on a Tuesday afternoon 3 weeks before everything changed. I was elbow deep in flour rolling out pie crust the way my mother taught me 60 years ago when the screen lit up with Jenny's name. My heart did that little skip it always did when she called. Even after all these years, even after everything hearing from my daughter, still felt like Christmas morning. "Hi, sweetheart," I said, wedging the phone between my ear and shoulder. "This is a nice surprise." "Mom, I only have a minute." Her voice was clipped efficient, the voice she used for business calls. "I wanted to let you know about the wedding details." I set down the rolling pin. My hands were trembling, and not just from the arthritis. "Of course, honey, I've been waiting to hear." "It's going to be small," she said. "Very intimate. David's parents are covering everything, and they have this vision for how they want it to look." Something cold settled in my stomach. "And how do they want it to look?" "Elegant, simple. You know how the Hartwells are?" I knew exactly how the Hartwells were. I'd met them twice in the 4 years Jenny had been with David. Twice. They lived 40 minutes away and had never once invited me to their home. But they'd taken my daughter to the Bahamas last Christmas while I ate leftover turkey alone. "So when is it?" I asked, keeping my voice light. "I'll need to find something to wear." There was a pause. The kind of pause that tells you everything you need to know. "October 14th, at the Harborview Estate on the Cape." "That's beautiful, Jenny. Your father and I always loved Cape Cod." Another pause. "Mom, about that." I closed my eyes. "Yes. The venue is really small, and David's family is so large. His mother has 5 siblings and they all have children, and there are the business associates to consider." "Jenny, what are you trying to tell me?" "You'll still be part of it," she said quickly. "We'll figure something out. Maybe a separate celebration? Just us. Something more casual where you'd be more comfortable." More comfortable. Like I was an invalid. Like I couldn't be trusted to use the right fork at a fancy dinner. "Are you saying I'm not invited to your wedding?" No, of course not. I'm saying we're still working out the details. It's complicated, Mom. You know how these things are." I didn't know. I had married her father in my parents' backyard with 30 guests and a cake I baked myself. There was nothing complicated about it. "Just trust me, okay?" she continued. "I'll call you when I know more. I have to run. David's taking me to look at flower arrangements." "Jenny, wait. I want to understand." "There's nothing to understand. I'll call you later. Love you." The line went dead. I stood there for a long time staring at the phone flower dusting the screen where I'd touched it. The pie crust was ruined. I didn't care. I scraped it into the trash and sat down at the kitchen table, trying to make sense of what had just happened. My daughter was getting married, and I wasn't sure if I was invited. I called my best friend Helen that night. She'd been a nurse with me at Boston General for 30 years, and she knew me better than anyone still living. "Tell me exactly what she said," Helen demanded. "She said it was small, intimate, that the Hartwells were paying and had a vision. A vision that doesn't include her own mother. She said we'd figure something out." "Maggie," Helen's voice was sharp, "figure something out is what you say when you're trying to find parking, not when you're talking about your mother at your wedding. Maybe I'm overreacting." "You're not. You never overreact. That's your problem. You underreact to everything. Your daughter treats you like last season's handbag, and you smile and offer to hold her purse." "Helen, I'm serious. When's the last time she visited? When's the last time she called just to talk, not to ask for something? I couldn't remember. That was the honest truth. I couldn't remember the last time Jenny had called me without needing something. She's busy, I said. Her job is demanding. Her job, right. The law firm where she bills $300 an hour but somehow can't afford her own mortgage payment. That's different. The housing market is difficult. Maggie, you've been paying her mortgage for 2 years. 2 years. And her car insurance, and her health insurance, and that loan from her failed boutique. And now she can't even put you on the guest list. She didn't say I wasn't on the guest list. She didn't say you were either. I had no answer for that. I have to go, I said finally. I'll call you tomorrow. Maggie, you deserve better than this. You know that, right? I hung up without answering because I wasn't sure anymore. The days passed. I didn't hear from Jenny. I called twice, left messages. She responded with texts. Brief, distracted, busy with wedding stuff, Mom. We'll call soon. Soon never came. Instead, what came was a phone call 10 days before the wedding. Not from Jenny, from a number I didn't recognize. Mrs. Sullivan, this is Carolyn Hartwell, David's mother. My hand tightened on the phone. Yes, hello, how are you? Fine, fine. Listen, I wanted to touch base about the wedding logistics. Logistics, like I was a shipment to be tracked. Of course, I said. We've arranged for a lovely brunch the day after the ceremony, very casual. Jenny thought you'd be more comfortable with that than the formal reception. The words hit me like ice water. The day after. Yes, at the Harborview, around 11. You can meet everyone, then get some photos with the newlyweds. It'll be lovely. I'm not invited to the reception. A pause. Well, as Jenny explained, the venue is quite small. And our family is so extensive, we had to make some difficult choices. Difficult choices. You understand, I'm sure. These events are so complicated to plan, but the brunch will be wonderful. We'll have pastries from that little bakery you like. Jenny mentioned you have a sweet tooth. I couldn't speak. My throat had closed up. Mrs. Sullivan, are you there? Yes, I managed. I'm here. Wonderful. So we'll see you at 11 on Sunday then, at the Harborview. What about the ceremony? I heard myself ask. Will I be there for the ceremony? Another pause. Longer this time. Oh, the ceremony is very small. Just immediate family. David's parents, his brothers, a few cousins. You understand. Immediate family, I repeated. Yes, but the brunch. Mrs. Hartwell, I am Jenny's mother, her only parent. Her father passed away 12 years ago. How am I not immediate family? I heard her exhale the sound of someone dealing with an inconvenience. Mrs. Sullivan. I don't want to speak out of turn. These decisions were made by the bride and groom. If you have concerns, perhaps you should take them up with Jenny directly. I've tried. She doesn't call me back. Well, I'm sure she's just overwhelmed with all the planning. I'll let her know we spoke. The brunch is at 11. We look forward to seeing you. She hung up before I could say another word. I sat in my kitchen, the afternoon light slanting through the window, and felt something inside me crack. Not break, not yet, but crack like ice before it shatters. I called Jenny immediately, straight to voicemail. Jenny, your future mother-in-law just called me. She told me I'm not invited to your wedding ceremony, or your reception. She invited me to a brunch, the day after. Please call me back. We need to talk about this. I waited. 1 hour, 2, 3. Finally, my phone buzzed, a text. Mom, I know you're upset, but please try to understand. David's family has certain expectations and I can't fight them on everything. The brunch will be nice. You'll meet everyone. It's not a big deal. I read those words over and over. Not a big deal. My daughter's wedding. The day I'd dreamed about since I first held her in my arms. Not a big deal. I called her again. This time she answered. Mom, I really can't talk right now. Then when can you talk? Because I've been waiting for 2 weeks. I know. Things are crazy. There's so much to do. Jenny, your mother-in-law told me I'm not welcome at your wedding. That's not what she said. She said the ceremony is for immediate family only. Am I not immediate family? A long pause. Mom, it's complicated. Then uncomplicate it for me. The Hartwells are paying for everything. They have very specific ideas about how they want the day to go. And David, he's their only son. They want it to be perfect. And having your mother there would ruin that perfection. That's not what I said. Then what are you saying? Because I'm trying to understand Jenny. I really am. I've supported you your entire life. I worked double shifts so you could have ballet lessons. I took out a second mortgage so you could go to law school. I've paid your bills when you couldn't. And now you're telling me I can't watch you get married? Mom, please don't guilt trip me. I felt like I'd been slapped. Guilt trip. I'm asking you a simple question. Do you want me at your wedding? Silence. Jenny, it's complicated. Answer the question. Mom. Her voice was tight now, frustrated. You don't make it easy. Okay? You show up in those old-fashioned outfits. You tell embarrassing stories about when I was a kid. Last time you met David's mother, you asked her if she'd ever tried couponing. I was trying to be helpful. You were trying to be you. And sometimes that's not what I need. The words hung in the air between us. I closed my eyes. I see, I said quietly. Look, it's not personal. It's just that the Hartwells, they're a certain kind of people. They have a certain image, and I'm trying to fit into their world. And I don't fit. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Mom, please. Let's just get through the wedding and then we can talk about this properly. Come to the brunch. Meet everyone. It'll be fine. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. I wanted to ask her what happened to the little girl who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, who said she wanted to marry her mommy when she grew up, who made me promise I'd always be her best friend. But I didn't do any of those things. Instead, I did what I'd always done. I surrendered. Okay, I said. I'll come to the brunch. Thank you, Mom. I knew you'd understand. I have to go. David's waiting. Love you. She hung up. I stood there in my kitchen holding a dead phone, feeling like a stranger in my own life. Helen called me that night. I told her everything. That ungrateful little princess, she hissed. After everything you've done for her. Everything. She's embarrassed by me, Helen. That's her problem, not yours. There's nothing wrong with you. Maybe there is. Maybe I am too old-fashioned. Maybe I do tell embarrassing stories. Maggie, stop. You're her mother. You raised her alone after Bill died. You sacrificed everything for her. And this is how she repays you, by hiding you away like some crazy aunt in the attic. She's not hiding me. What would you call it? I didn't have an answer. The week before the wedding was the longest of my life. I threw myself into preparations, even though I wasn't really preparing for anything. I bought a new dress, a modest navy blue that wouldn't embarrass anyone. I got my hair done. I baked shortbread cookies, the kind Jenny used to love as a child. I wrapped a gift, a photo album I'd been working on for months. Pictures of Jenny from the day she was born until her law school graduation. Every milestone, every memory. I'd written little notes on each page. I thought she might want to show it to her children someday. The night before the wedding, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the wind outside, thinking about all the ways my life had narrowed down to this moment. I remembered the day she was born. Bill was there crying too big and clumsy to hold her properly. I'd never seen him so happy. She looks just like you, Maggie, he kept saying. She's perfect. I remembered her first steps, her first words, her first day of school. I remembered the Halloween costumes I sewed by hand because we couldn't afford store-bought. I remembered the time she got sick, and I stayed up for 3 days straight, holding her upright so she could breathe. I remembered the funeral. Bill's funeral. She was 30 years old and crying like a child, clutching my wrist, begging me not to leave her too. I promised I never would. How had we gotten from there to here? The morning of the wedding, I woke early. I put on my navy dress, my sensible heels. I wrapped the gift one more time, making sure the ribbon was perfect. I packed the shortbread in a tin. I didn't know what time the ceremony was. Jenny had never told me. I didn't know where I was supposed to be. At noon, my phone rang. Jenny. Mom, hi. Quick question. What time can you be at the bus stop on Main and Spruce? I blinked. The bus stop? Yeah. After the reception, we're heading back to the hotel and it's right on the way. We can swing by and pick you up. Take you to the brunch venue. Make sure you find it okay. You want me to wait at a bus stop? It's just for a little while, an hour, maybe 2. The reception shouldn't go too late. We'll grab you on our way back. I stood there in my nice dress, my wrapped gift in my hands, and felt something twist in my chest. Jenny, I could just drive myself to the brunch tomorrow. Mom, please. I'm trying to include you. This way you can ride with us, and we can spend some time together. Isn't that what you wanted? What I wanted was to watch my daughter get married. What I wanted was to sit in the front row and cry happy tears. What I wanted was to be her mother. But I'd stopped asking for what I wanted a long time ago. Okay, I said. What time? Be there around 4. We'll pick you up after the reception. Just wait by the bus stop. Main and Spruce. You know the one? I know it. Great. Thanks, Mom. I really appreciate you being flexible about all this. Flexible, like I was a schedule to be adjusted. Jenny, wait. I just want you to know I love you, and I'm proud of you, no matter what. Love you too, Mom. Gotta go. See you later. She was gone. I looked at myself in the hallway mirror, an old woman in a navy dress holding a gift no one wanted, about to sit at a bus stop like a package waiting to be collected. Bill's voice echoed in my head. Something he'd said to me once years ago. You give too much of yourself, Maggie. One day there won't be anything left. I thought he was wrong. I thought that's what love meant, giving and giving until you disappeared. But standing there in my empty house, I wondered if maybe he'd been right all along. At 3:30, I walked to the bus stop, Main and Spruce. It was a bench across from a gas station next to a Dunkin' Donuts. Not the kind of place you'd wait for your daughter on her wedding day. But I sat down anyway, smoothing my dress, placing the gift and cookies beside me. The October air was cool. The leaves were turning. Somewhere across town, my daughter was getting married, and I was sitting on a bench waiting to be remembered. The first hour passed slowly. I watched cars go by. None of them stopped. I checked my phone. No messages. The second hour was worse. The sun started to sink. The air got colder. My feet ached in my heels, but I didn't take them off. I wanted to look nice when they came. The third hour, I started to worry. Maybe there was traffic. Maybe the reception went long. Maybe she'd forgotten to charge her phone. I sent a text. Hi, honey, just checking in. Still at the bus stop. Hope everything is going well. No response. The fourth hour, fear turned to something else, something cold and heavy that settled in my chest like a stone. The fifth hour, I stopped checking my phone. I just sat there watching the streetlights flicker on, feeling the darkness gather around me. A teenager on a bicycle rode past. He didn't even glance at me. Nobody did. I was invisible again, just like always. At 10 o'clock, the last bus came and went. It didn't stop. The driver didn't even look at me. That's when I knew she wasn't coming. I sat there for another 2 hours, not because I believed she would show up, but because I didn't know what else to do. I'd spent so many years waiting for Jenny, waiting for her to call, waiting for her to visit, waiting for her to need me, waiting for her to love me the way I loved her. Now I was just waiting for nothing. At midnight, I stood up. My legs were stiff, my back was aching. I took off my heels and held them in one hand. I picked up the gift and the cookies with the other. And I started walking home. The streets were empty. The night was cold. But I walked with my back straight the way my mother taught me, the way I'd taught Jenny. I didn't cry. Not yet. That would come later. For now, I just put one foot in front of the other and tried to remember who I was before I became someone's mother, someone's wife, someone's convenience. By the time I reached my house, the sun was starting to rise. Pink and gold light spilled across the porch, catching the peeling paint, the weeds, and the cracks. This house that Bill and I had bought 40 years ago. This house where we'd raised our daughter. This house that had slowly become a prison of my own making. I stood on the steps for a long moment, key in hand. Then I went inside, set down the gift I'd wrapped with such care, and plugged in my dying phone. That's when I saw it. A photo, posted by David's sister. A sister I'd met exactly once. The caption read, "A perfect evening, just family." And there they were, all of them. Under strings of golden lights, champagne glasses raised faces glowing with joy, Jenny in her cream-lace dress, David tall and awkward grinning at the camera, his parents, his brothers, his cousins, Jenny's friends from college, her godmother, her co-workers, everyone she'd ever known, everyone she'd ever loved, everyone except me. I stared at that photo until my eyes burned. I zoomed in on my daughter's face looking for something, guilt maybe, or sadness, some sign that she'd thought about me even once while she danced and laughed and celebrated. But there was nothing, just joy, pure, uncomplicated joy, the joy of someone who had gotten exactly what she wanted. And that's when I finally understood. I hadn't been forgotten. I had been erased. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at my kitchen table with my phone in my hands, scrolling through photo after photo, like someone picking at a wound that wouldn't stop bleeding. There was the ceremony, a candlelit church I'd never seen. Jenny walking down an aisle lined with white roses, her arm linked through Carolyn Hartwell's. Carolyn Hartwell walked my daughter down the aisle. Not me. The woman who gave her life, the woman who raised her alone for 12 years after Bill died, the woman who worked double shifts and skipped meals so Jenny could have braces and ballet lessons and a college education. No, Carolyn Hartwell with her designer dress and her country club smile got to be the mother that day. I found more pictures. The reception, long tables with linen napkins and name cards, a slideshow playing on a screen, baby pictures, graduation photos, vacation snapshots, an entire timeline of Jenny's life projected for all her guests to see. I wasn't in a single one. 30 years of memories, and they'd edited me out like I never existed. Around 4 a.m, I made tea I didn't drink. I sat with my hands wrapped around the cup, feeling the warmth leak away, thinking about all the things I should have said, all the times I should have said no, all the moments when I felt something was wrong, but convinced myself I was being too sensitive. I remembered last Christmas. Jenny had canceled at the last minute. David's parents are doing this big thing at their house, she'd said. It would be weird if we didn't go. You understand, right, Mom? I'd said I understood. I ate turkey alone and watched old movies and told myself it was fine. I remembered her birthday 3 years ago. I'd driven 2 hours to surprise her with a cake I baked myself. When I showed up at her apartment, she looked panicked. Mom, we're about to leave for dinner with David's partners. You should have called first. Can you just leave the cake? We'll eat it later. I left the cake. I drove home in the dark. She never mentioned it again. I remembered the loan for her boutique. $40,000 that was supposed to be paid back in installments. The business failed in 8 months. She never brought up the money again, and I never asked. All those moments, all those small surrenders, they added up to this. A daughter who could erase her mother without a second thought. A daughter who could dance at her wedding while I sat on a bus stop bench waiting like a stray dog, hoping to be let inside. The sun came up. Golden light filled my kitchen, and I finally moved. I walked to the hall mirror and looked at myself. The woman staring back was old, tired. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her silver hair tangled from a night without sleep. But her spine was straight. Her jaw was set. I looked like my mother who had buried 3 children and a husband and never once felt sorry for herself. My mother who told me on her deathbed, "Don't let anyone make you small, Maggie. You take up the space you deserve." I hadn't listened. For years, I'd made myself smaller and smaller, trying to fit into whatever space Jenny allowed me. And now I'd shrunk so much she couldn't see me at all. My phone buzzed. A text from Jenny. "Hi, Mom. Hope you got home okay last night. Sorry we couldn't come by. Things ran really late, and David's parents had everyone over for drinks after. Let's catch up soon. Love you. I read it 3 times. Sorry we couldn't come by, like I was a dry cleaner she'd forgotten to stop at. Like I hadn't sat in the cold for 6 hours waiting for her. Let's catch up soon." The same empty promise she'd been making for years. Love you. 2 words that used to mean everything. Now they felt like punctuation. Something you add at the end of a message because you're supposed to. I didn't respond. Instead, I called Helen. She answered on the second ring. "Maggie, it's 7 a.m. What happened?" "She didn't come." "What do you mean she didn't come?" I sat at that bus stop for 6 hours. She never came. She never even called. Silence on the other end. Then Helen's voice hard and cold. That little witch. Helen, no. I'm done defending her. I'm done making excuses. She left you on a street corner while she partied with people who think they're too good for you. That's not being busy. That's not a misunderstanding. That's cruelty. I couldn't argue. For the first time in years, I couldn't find a way to make Jenny's behavior okay. Have you talked to her? Helen asked. She texted, said she was sorry they couldn't come by. Things ran late. Things ran late. God, I could strangle her. There are pictures, I said, on social media, from the wedding. And I'm not in any of them, not even the slideshow. They showed her whole life, Helen. Baby pictures, childhood, college, everything, and I'm not in a single one. Helen was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Come over. Don't sit there alone. Come over and we'll figure out what to do." I don't know what to do, that's the problem. Then we'll figure it out together. That's what friends are for. I hung up and stood there in my kitchen looking at the gift still wrapped on the hall table, the ribbon still perfect. Inside was a photo album I'd spent months making. Pictures of Jenny from the day she was born, pictures she'd apparently decided didn't exist. I picked up the album, walked out to the trash bin, and lifted the lid. Then I stopped. Not because I'd changed my mind, but because throwing it away felt too easy, too quiet. Jenny would never know. She'd never have to see what she'd rejected. I wanted her to see, so instead of throwing it away, I put it back on the table. I would return it to her myself. I would make her look at every page. At Helen's house, I sat on her floral couch and drank coffee I didn't taste while she paced back and forth, getting angrier with every pass. "She walked down the aisle with Carolyn Hartwell," I said. "Not me. That woman barely knows her." "That woman has money," Helen spat. "That's all Jenny cares about anymore. Status, image, looking like she belongs in that world. Maybe I should have tried harder to fit in." Helen stopped pacing and stared at me. "Tried harder. Maggie, you've been trying your whole life. You've given that girl everything. Your money, your time, your dignity. And what has she given you back? Excuses, empty promises, a seat at a brunch you weren't even welcome to attend." I didn't answer because she was right. Helen sat down beside me and took my hand. Her fingers were rough from decades of nursing work, same as mine. We'd held hands through a lot of things. Bill's funeral, her husband's stroke, surgeries, diagnoses, retirement parties. She was the closest thing I had to family besides Jenny. "What do you want to do?" she asked quietly. "I want to understand why. Why she did it. Why I let it happen. Why I kept giving and giving when she kept taking and taking. Why I convinced myself that if I just loved her enough, she'd eventually love me back the right way." Helen squeezed my hand. "Because you're a mother. That's what mothers do. We love our children even when it hurts. But it can't keep hurting like this. I can't keep disappearing to make her comfortable." "Then stop." I looked at her. "What do you mean? Stop. Stop paying her bills. Stop accepting her excuses. Stop pretending everything is fine when it isn't. Make her see you. She'll be angry. Good. Let her be angry. At least then she'll feel something." I thought about that. I thought about Jenny's voice on the phone, always rushed, always distracted. I thought about her texts, those brief little messages that said nothing. I thought about the way she looked at me sometimes, like I was an obligation she couldn't wait to discharge. "I've been paying her mortgage," I said, "for 2 years. "I know. And her car insurance, and her health insurance, and David's medication." Helen's eyes widened. "David's medication, her husband's, he has some condition. I don't even know what. She asked me to cover it temporarily. That was 18 months ago." "Maggie, I know." "Do they know? Do the Hartwells know you're supporting them?" "I don't think so. Jenny asked me not to mention it. She said it would be embarrassing." Helen stood up and started pacing again. "So let me get this straight. You pay her mortgage, you pay her bills, you paid for her wedding dress, and in return, she leaves you at a bus stop and pretends you don't exist." When she put it like that, it sounded insane. It sounded like something that would happen to someone else. Not to me. Not to Martha Sullivan, who used to run the ICU at Boston General. Not to the woman who'd delivered hundreds of babies and held the hands of dying patients and never once backed down from a fight. How had I become this person? I need to see it, I said suddenly. I need to see how much I've given her. What do you mean? The money, all of it. I need to see the numbers. Helen nodded slowly. Okay, let's go to your house. We'll look at everything together. Back home, I pulled out the filing cabinet in my office. Bill had always been organized about finances, and I'd kept up the habit after he died. Everything was labeled, dated, filed alphabetically. I found the folder marked Jenny. It was 3 inches thick. We spread it all out on the kitchen table. Bank statements, receipts, cashier's checks, loan documents, credit card bills I'd paid off. Helen started making a list. I watched her handwriting fill page after page. Down payment assistance 2018, $30,000. She said she'd pay it back. Did she? I shook my head. Car loan cosign 2019, $12,000. The Prius. She said the train wasn't safe. Business loan 2020, $40,000. The boutique. Mortgage payments 2022 to present. Helen looked up at me. How much per month? $2,800. She did the math in her head. That's over $60,000 in 2 years. I felt sick. Insurance medication, that tuition thing for Emma. Helen kept writing. The wedding dress deposit. The honeymoon contribution. The what? Helen pointed to a line item on one of the bank statements. $2,000, scheduled for next week. Honeymoon gift. I grabbed the paper. There it was. An automatic transfer I'd set up months ago, back when Jenny first got engaged, back when I still believed I'd be at the wedding. I forgot about that, I whispered. You were going to give her $2,000 for a honeymoon, after she didn't even invite you to the ceremony. I stared at the number until it blurred. Helen finished her calculations and sat back in her chair. Maggie, do you know how much money you've given her since Bill died? How much, not counting the college loans or the law school tuition or anything from before 2015? She took a breath. $243,000. The room tilted. I grabbed the edge of the table. That's not counting interest, Helen continued, or the things you've paid for that aren't documented here. Groceries when she visited, gifts, that trip to Europe she took after the bar exam. I paid for her honeymoon, I said. I'm paying for her honeymoon, and she didn't even want me at the wedding. Maggie, I've given her everything I had, everything I saved, and she threw me away like garbage. I started laughing, not because it was funny, but because the alternative was screaming. What are you going to do? Helen asked. I looked at the papers spread across my table, $250,000, the sum total of my sacrifice reduced to receipts and bank statements. I'm going to the bank, I said, tomorrow morning. Good. And I'm going to cancel everything, every payment, every transfer, every automatic deduction. Helen smiled. It was a grim smile, but it was real. It's about time. And I didn't sleep that night either. But this time it wasn't grief keeping me awake. It was something else, something that felt almost like anger, except cleaner, sharper. I lay in bed thinking about the woman I used to be, the nurse who fought for her patients, the wife who challenged her husband's opinions and made him better for it, the mother who believed that loving someone meant giving them everything they needed. I'd gotten that last part wrong. Loving someone didn't mean erasing yourself. It didn't mean accepting crumbs and calling them a feast. It didn't mean waiting at bus stops for people who were never going to come. Love meant respect. And Jenny hadn't respected me in years. Maybe she never would. Maybe she'd grown into someone who couldn't see past her own ambition, her own insecurities, her own desperate need to belong in a world that looked down on people like me. But that was her problem, not mine. I was done making myself small. I was done being invisible. Tomorrow I would start taking up space again. The bank was quiet when I arrived. It was a Thursday morning and most people were at work. The young man at the counter looked barely old enough to shave, but he smiled at me with genuine warmth. "How can I help you today, ma'am?" "I'd like to review my active transfers," I said, "and see which accounts are connected to my daughters." His fingers hovered over the keyboard. We can certainly pull that up. What specifically are you looking for? Everything. I'm listed as a secondary on her mortgage. I cover her insurance policies. I make quarterly payments on a student loan I co-signed. I want to see all of it. He nodded and started typing. Let me just verify your identity and pull those records. 10 minutes later, I was sitting in a small consultation room with 3 pages of transactions printed in front of me. Single-spaced, 12-point font. I read every line: rent support, car insurance, health insurance. That prescription for David that I still didn't understand. Emma's tutoring fees. And there near the bottom a charge that made me laugh out loud. Is everything okay, ma'am? The young man asked. This line here, $129 every other week. What is that? He leaned over to look. It appears to be a recurring payment to a pet grooming service. My daughter's dog groomer. Yes, ma'am. I shook my head. Jenny had asked for that 18 months ago. Just until things level out, Mom. You know how it is. I was paying to have her dog washed while she left me at a bus stop in the cold. I want to cancel everything, I said. Today. He blinked. Everything. Every automatic payment, every transfer, every recurring charge connected to my daughter's accounts. That's, quite a few items. I'm aware. He shifted in his seat. Are you sure you want to do this all at once? Sometimes it's better to make gradual changes, especially with shared financial arrangements. I looked at him. Really looked. A young man in a new suit, probably still living at home, probably still calling his mother every Sunday. When I was your age, I said, I worked 60 hours a week to support my family. I never asked anyone for anything. I paid my own way, raised my own child, buried my own husband, and somehow I ended up here, paying for a dog groomer because my daughter is too embarrassed to admit she needs help. He was silent. So yes, I continued, I want to cancel everything. Not gradually. Now. He nodded slowly. I'll need your signature on a few forms. I'll sign whatever you need. It took an hour. There were verification calls, authorization codes, manager approvals. But by the time I walked out of that bank, every single automatic payment to Jenny had been canceled, all except 2. Emma's college savings fund and my monthly donation to the animal shelter. Those I kept. Because Emma was still a child and she'd never done anything wrong. And because the dogs at the shelter had never pretended I didn't exist. I drove home feeling lighter than I had in years. The weight I'd been carrying, the constant pressure of being needed, wanted only for what I could give, it was gone. My phone buzzed as I pulled into the driveway. Jenny, Mom, call me when you get a chance. Something weird is happening with my bank. I looked at the message for a long moment. Then I turned off my phone and went inside. The house was quiet. Sunlight streamed through the windows, catching dust motes in the air. I walked through the room slowly, seeing them differently now. The photos on the wall, Jenny as a baby, Jenny at her first recital, Jenny graduating high school, college, law school, all those pictures I'd kept because I thought they mattered. I started taking them down. Not in anger, just in recognition. These weren't my memories anymore. They were relics of a relationship that no longer existed. I put them in a box and set the box in the closet. Maybe someday I'd look at them again. Maybe I wouldn't. The phone rang. My landline, the one I kept because I was old-fashioned. I checked the caller ID. Jenny. I let it ring. It went to voicemail. A minute later, the phone rang again. I let that one go too. By evening, I had 7 voicemails. I didn't listen to any of them. Instead, I made dinner for myself, just for myself. Not enough for 2 not saved in case someone dropped by. Just a simple meal eaten at my own table in my own house on my own terms. It was the best meal I'd had in years. Later that night, I pulled out my journal. I hadn't written in it since Bill died, but now the words came easily like they'd been waiting all this time. I wrote about the bus stop, about the photos, about the bank and the dog groomer and the $243,000. I wrote about Jenny as a baby so small and perfect in my arms. I wrote about Bill and how much I missed him and how ashamed I was that I'd let things get this bad. And at the end I wrote a single question. Who am I now? I didn't have an answer. Not yet. But for the first time in a long time, I wanted to find out. The next morning, Jenny showed up at my door. I saw her through the window before she knocked. Her car in the driveway, her face tight with frustration. She was wearing workout clothes, her hair in a messy ponytail. She looked like she'd come straight from the gym. I opened the door before she could ring the bell. "Mom." Her voice was clipped. "Why haven't you been answering your phone?" I needed some time to think. Time to think, Mom, my mortgage payment bounced. My insurance got canceled. Do you have any idea what kind of chaos that's caused? I stepped aside and gestured for her to come in. She walked past me, already pacing, already talking. I had to call the bank 3 times. They said you canceled everything. Everything, Mom, without even telling me. I had to explain to David why our accounts were suddenly frozen. Do you know how embarrassing that was? I closed the door and turned to face her. "Sit down, Jenny." "I don't want to sit down. I want to know what's going on." "Sit down." Something in my voice must have gotten through. She stopped pacing and sat on the edge of the couch, arms crossed. I sat across from her in Bill's old armchair, the one he used to read in every evening, the one that still smelled faintly of his aftershave. "I waited for you," I said, "at the bus stop, for 6 hours. She had the grace to look away. "I know. I said I was sorry." "You said things ran late." "They did." "I saw the pictures, Jenny." "The reception ended at 8. You were at the Hartwell's house by 9. You had time. You just didn't come." "Mom, it was complicated. Everyone was going to the after party, and David's parents were expecting us, and I couldn't just leave." "But you could leave me, sitting in the cold, waiting." She stood up abruptly. "This is ridiculous. You're acting like I committed some crime. It was one night, one mistake, and now you're punishing me by destroying my finances." "I'm not punishing you, I'm stopping." "Stopping what?" "Everything, the mortgage, the insurance, the loans, the dog groomer." I watched her face change. "Yes, Jenny, even the dog groomer. I was paying $129 every 2 weeks so you could have your dog washed. Did you know that?" She was quiet. "Did you know you were sending me bills for your husband's medication? Did you know I was paying for Emma's tutoring? Did you know I had already scheduled $2,000 for your honeymoon? Your honeymoon, Jenny. For a wedding I wasn't allowed to attend. You were invited to the brunch." I laughed. I couldn't help it. "The brunch. After the ceremony I wasn't welcome at. After the reception where you danced with everyone you'd ever met except your own mother. The brunch was supposed to make up for that. You don't understand how hard this has been for me." "Hard for you?" "Yes, hard for me. David's family has expectations. They have money and status and connections. And I'm just Jenny Sullivan from nowhere, with a mother who clips coupons and wears clothes from 15 years ago. Do you know what it's like trying to fit into that world?" I stared at her. My daughter. The baby I'd held in my arms. The girl I'd raised alone after her father died. The woman she'd become. "I know exactly what it's like," I said quietly, "because I did it for you. Every double shift, every skipped meal, every second mortgage. I did it so you could have a better life, and this is what you do with it. You hide me away like I'm something to be ashamed of." Her eyes filled with tears. "That's not fair." "Fair." I stood up. "You want to talk about fair would have been a seat at your wedding. Fair would have been a phone call when you were running late. Fair would have been the basic decency of treating me like a human being instead of an ATM machine. I never asked you to pay for everything. You never asked me to stop either." The words hung in the air between us. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I don't know what you want from me," she said. "I want you to see me, not as your mother, not as someone who pays your bills, as a person with feelings, a person who has spent the last 10 years trying to earn a place in your life and being pushed further away." "I do see you." "No, you see what I can do for you, that's different." She sat back down deflated. The anger was gone, replaced by something else, something that might have been shame. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now you pay your own bills. You call your own bank. You figure out your own life." And us. I looked at her for a long moment. My daughter. My only child. The person I loved more than anyone else in the world. I don't know, I said. I honestly don't know. She nodded slowly. Then she stood up and walked to the door. I'm sorry, she said. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I am sorry. I didn't answer. I just watched her go. After she left, I sat in Bill's chair for a long time. The house was quiet. The afternoon light faded. And I thought about all the ways we hurt the people we love and all the ways they hurt us back and whether any of it could ever be undone. I didn't have answers, but for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of the questions. That night, I slept better than I had in months, and when I woke up, I knew exactly what I needed to do next. The lawyer's office was in downtown Boston, on the 14th floor of a building that smelled like old paper and expensive cologne. I'd made the appointment 3 days after Jenny left my house. 3 days of silence. 3 days of thinking about what I wanted my life to look like without her in it. Mr. Harrington was older than I remembered, his hair completely white now, his hands spotted with age. He'd handled Bill's estate 12 years ago, and I'd trusted him then. I trusted him now. Mrs. Sullivan, he said, rising from his desk. It's been a long time. Too long, I said. I should have come sooner. He gestured to a chair, and I sat down, placing my folder of documents on his desk. He looked at it, but didn't reach for it. You said on the phone you wanted to make changes to your estate plan. Yes, significant ones. He nodded slowly, his eyes studying my face. May I ask what prompted this? My daughter, I said. She got married last week. Congratulations. I wasn't invited. He paused, his pen hovering over a notepad. I see. No, you don't, not yet. I pushed the folder toward him. But you will. He opened it and began reading. I watched his expression change as he went through the documents. The bank statements, the canceled payments, the photos I'd printed from social media. When he finished, he set down the papers and looked at me. You've been supporting her financially for years. Yes. And she excluded you from her wedding. She had her future mother-in-law walk her down the aisle. He was quiet for a moment. I've seen situations like this before, Mrs. Sullivan, more often than you'd think. Adult children who take their parents for granted, who forget where they came from. I didn't forget. She did. What changes do you want to make? I took a breath. I want to remove Jenny from my will entirely. He didn't flinch. That's your right. I want to set up a trust for my granddaughter. Emma. She's 13. What kind of trust? Education. Living expenses. Something she can access when she turns 18 or earlier if she needs it. I want her to know that someone believed in her, not because she was useful, but because she was kind. He wrote something on his notepad. And the rest of your estate. The house, my savings, whatever's left after the trust. Who do you want to inherit those? I thought about it. I'd been thinking about it for days. Split it. Half to the trust for Emma, half to charity, the animal shelter downtown, the nursing scholarship fund at Boston General, organizations that actually help people. He nodded. And Jenny? Nothing. You're certain? I've never been more certain of anything in my life. He set down his pen. Mrs. Sullivan, I have to ask, are you doing this out of revenge? I considered the question. It deserved an honest answer. No, I said finally. I'm doing it because I finally understand something. Jenny doesn't need my money. She never did. What she needed was boundaries, and I never gave her any. I thought if I just kept giving, she'd eventually appreciate it. Instead, she learned that I had no value except what I could provide. That's a hard realization. It's the truth, and I'm tired of pretending otherwise. He picked up his pen again. Let's get started then. We spent the next 2 hours going through every detail. The trust structure, the beneficiary designations, the executor responsibilities. I'd asked Helen to be my executor and she'd agreed immediately. Someone needs to make sure that girl doesn't contest it, Helen had said, and I'd love to see her try. When we finished, Mr. Harrington stacked the papers neatly and looked at me. I'll have the final documents ready for your signature by Friday. Is there anything else you need? Yes, I said. I want to add a letter, something to be read after I'm gone. To whom? To Emma, my granddaughter. I want her to understand why I made these choices. He nodded. Take your time. Write it when you're ready. We can include it with the trust documents. I stood up and shook his hand. Thank you, Mr. Harrington. Mrs. Sullivan. He held my hand for a moment longer. You're doing something brave. No, I said. I'm just done doing something foolish. I drove home with the windows down, letting the autumn air fill the car. The leaves were turning gold and red, carpeting the streets in color. It was beautiful. I hadn't noticed beauty in a long time. I'd been too busy being invisible. When I got home, there was a car in my driveway. Not Jenny's. An older Honda with a dented bumper and a Boston College sticker on the back window. I parked and got out confused. Then the front door of my house opened and Emma stepped onto the porch. Grandma, she said, I hope it's okay that I'm here. I stopped walking. My granddaughter, 13 years old, standing on my porch like she'd been waiting for me. Emma, how did you get here? I took the bus, then I walked. Does your mother know? She shook her head. She thinks I'm at Sarah's house. I should have sent her home. I should have called Jenny immediately. That's what the old Maggie would have done. The Maggie who never wanted to cause trouble, who always smoothed things over, who put everyone else's comfort before her own. Instead, I walked up the steps and pulled my granddaughter into my arms. Come inside, I said. I'll make tea. We sat at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd spread out all those bank statements, where Helen had calculated the cost of my daughter's indifference. Emma wrapped her hands around her mug and looked at me with serious eyes. I heard Mom on the phone, she said, talking to Dad. She said you cut her off. I stopped paying her bills. She said you were being spiteful. Is that what you think? Emma was quiet for a moment. Then she shook her head. No, I think something happened. Something she's not telling me. I looked at my granddaughter. She was so young, but there was something in her eyes that reminded me of myself at that age. A watchfulness, a need to understand. Your mother didn't invite me to the wedding, I said. Not to the ceremony, not to the reception. She asked me to wait at a bus stop, and then she never came. Emma's face changed. She told me you couldn't make it. She said you weren't feeling well. That's not true. I know. And she looked down at her tea. I saw the pictures. You weren't in any of them. I asked Mom why, and she said it was complicated. That's her favorite word? Emma almost smiled. She uses it a lot. Did she tell you anything else? She said you were angry, that you were punishing her for something that wasn't her fault. Emma looked up at me. But that doesn't make sense. You don't punish people. You're not like that. I reached across the table and took her hand. No, I'm not. But I am tired, Emma. Tired of being taken for granted. Tired of giving everything and getting nothing back. I don't take you for granted. I know you don't. That's why I'm still here. We sat together in silence for a moment. Then Emma said, Mom's really stressed. She's been fighting with Dad a lot. I think there's money problems. There probably are. I was paying for more than she realized. Why? Because I thought that's what love meant. Giving everything you have to make someone else's life easier. Isn't it? I shook my head. No, sweetheart. Love means respect. It means showing up. It means treating people like they matter. Your mother forgot how to do that. Maybe she never learned. Emma was quiet for a long time. Then she said, I don't want to forget. Then don't. Remember how it feels right now sitting at this table with your grandmother. Remember that people are more important than money. Remember that showing up matters more than showing off. I will. Promise me. I promise. I squeezed her hand. Now, let's call your mother before she sends out a search party. Jenny arrived 20 minutes later. I heard her car screech into the driveway, heard the door slam, heard her footsteps pounding up the porch. Emma! She burst through the front door without knocking. What were you thinking? I've been worried sick. I'm fine, Mom. I was just visiting Grandma. Without telling me, without asking permission, you would have said no. Jenny stopped. She looked at me, then at Emma, then back at me. Her face was flushed, her hair disheveled. She looked like she'd been crying. "You should have called me," she said to me, the second she showed up. "She's my granddaughter. She's allowed to visit. Not like this. Not after everything. After everything you did, you mean?" Jenny's jaw tightened. "I'm not having this conversation in front of Emma." "Why not? She already knows. She figured it out herself because you lied to her." "I didn't lie. You told her I wasn't feeling well, that I couldn't make it to the wedding. Those are lies, Jenny." Emma stood up from the table. "Mom, just tell me the truth. Did you really leave Grandma at a bus stop?" Jenny's face crumbled. For a moment, she looked like the little girl I used to know, the one who crawled into my bed during thunderstorms, the one who held my hand at her father's funeral. "It wasn't supposed to happen like that," she whispered. "But it did," I said. "It happened exactly like that, and then you partied all night while I walked home in the dark." I said I was sorry. Sorry doesn't undo it. Sorry doesn't make me uninvisible. Emma moved between us. "Stop, both of you, just stop." We looked at her. My 13-year-old granddaughter, standing in the middle of a war she didn't start. "I love both of you," Emma said. "And I hate this. I hate that you're fighting. I hate that I have to choose sides. I hate that everything is broken and nobody knows how to fix it." Her voice cracked on the last word. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I moved toward her, but Jenny got there first. She pulled Emma into her arms, and for a moment they just held each other, mother and daughter, the way it should be. I watched them, and I felt something shift in my chest. Not forgiveness, not yet, but something close to hope. When they pulled apart, Jenny looked at me. Her eyes were red, her makeup ruined. "I don't know how to fix this," she said. "I don't even know where to start." "Start by telling the truth," I said. "To Emma, to yourself, to me." "What truth?" "Why? That's all I've ever wanted to know. Why wasn't I good enough to be at your wedding?" She took a shaky breath. "Because I was ashamed. Of me. Of everything. Of where I came from. Of who I used to be." She wiped her eyes. "The Hartwells, they're so perfect. They have this life, this image. And I wanted to be part of it so badly. I thought if I could just fit in, if I could just be like them, everything would be better. And I didn't fit the image. No, you didn't, and I was too weak to fight for you." I let that settle. It hurt, but at least it was honest. "What about now?" I asked. "Do you still feel that way?" Jenny looked at Emma, then back at me. "I don't know. I'm so confused. Everything I thought I wanted, everything I worked for, it's all falling apart. David's parents are furious about the money. David's stressed about work. And I can't stop thinking about you sitting at that bus stop waiting for me." "Good," she flinched. "Good. Yes, good. You should think about it. You should remember how it felt to leave your mother behind. Maybe it'll help you make better choices next time." "There won't be a next time." "You're right. There won't. Because I'm done waiting, Jenny. I'm done hoping you'll remember that I exist. I'm done being your backup plan." "What does that mean?" "It means we start over, from the beginning. You don't get to pick up where we left off. You have to earn your way back." "How?" "You show up, without asking for anything. You call because you want to talk, not because you need something. You treat me like a person, not a problem to be managed." Jenny nodded slowly. "I can try." "Trying isn't enough. You have to actually do it." "I will. I promise." I'd heard her promises before. They usually lasted about a week, but I looked at Emma standing there with hope in her eyes, and I decided to give her mother one more chance. "We'll see," I said. "Now take your daughter home. She has school tomorrow." Jenny gathered her things. At the door, she paused. "Mom." "Yes." "I love you. I know I don't show it, but I do." I didn't answer. I just watched her go. After they left, I sat in my kitchen for a long time. The tea had gone cold. The house was quiet. But something felt different. I'd said the things I needed to say. I'd drawn the lines I needed to draw. Whatever happened next was up to Jenny. For the first time in years, that didn't terrify me. It felt like freedom. Helen came over the next morning with bagels and cream cheese and a bottle of wine she said was for later. "So how did it go with the lawyer?" she asked, spreading cream cheese with the focus of a surgeon. "It's done. New will, new trust, new everything. And Jenny? She came by last night. Emma showed up unannounced, and Jenny followed." Helen's eyebrows shot up. Emma, by herself. "Took the bus, lied to her mother about where she was going." "Good girl." "Helen!" "What?" She wanted to see her grandmother. That's more than her mother's done in months. I couldn't argue with that. "How did Jenny take it?" Helen asked. "The confrontation, I mean." "She cried. She admitted she was ashamed of me. She promised to do better." "Do you believe her?" I thought about it. I believe she wants to do better. Whether she can is a different question. "And Emma?" "Emma is the reason I'm not giving up completely. That child sees more than anyone gives her credit for." Helen nodded. "Kids usually do. They just don't have the words yet." We ate our bagels in companionable silence. Then Helen said, "I got a call this morning from someone at the hospital." "Which hospital?" "Boston General, where we used to work." "Who called? Mary Chen. You remember her?" "She was a resident when we left." "Little Mary with the glasses. She's chief of nursing now." I laughed. "Little Mary is chief of nursing." "Time flies, Maggie. Anyway, she's organizing some kind of reunion. Former staff from our era. She wanted to know if you'd be interested." "Interested in what?" "Coming, speaking. Apparently, you're something of a legend." I stared at her. "Me? You delivered more babies than anyone in the history of the maternity ward. You held more hands, comforted more families, saved more lives. Of course you're a legend." I hadn't thought about my nursing days in years. After Bill died, I'd poured everything into Jenny. The hospital became a memory, something that happened to someone else. "When is it?" I asked. "Next month. They're doing a whole thing. Awards, speeches, a dinner. Mary wants you to be the guest of honor." "Guest of honor?" "You heard me." I set down my bagel. "Helen, I'm 74 years old. I haven't worked in 12 years. Nobody remembers me." "That's where you're wrong. Mary specifically asked for you, said you made a difference in her life, changed how she thought about patient care." I felt something stir in my chest, something I hadn't felt in a long time. "I'll think about it," I said. "Think fast. Mary needs an answer by Friday." After Helen left, I went to my bedroom closet and pulled out a box I hadn't opened in years. Inside were my old nursing things, my first stethoscope, my hospital badges, certificates and awards, and photos from another lifetime. There was a picture of me at 30, standing with a group of new mothers and their babies. I was smiling, really smiling, like someone who knew exactly who she was and what she was meant to do. I'd forgotten that woman. I'd let her disappear under the weight of being Jenny's mother, Bill's widow, a problem to be hidden away. But she was still there, somewhere under all those layers of sacrifice and silence. Maybe it was time to bring her back. I called Mary Chen that afternoon. "Mrs. Sullivan." Her voice was warm, genuine. "Helen said you'd be in touch. Thank you so much for calling." "It's just Maggie now. I haven't been Mrs. Sullivan in a long time." "Maggie, then. I can't tell you how much it would mean to have you at the reunion. The stories people tell about you, they're incredible." "I'm sure they're exaggerated." "They're not. I was there. Remember, I saw you work. You had this way of making everyone feel calm, even in the worst situations. I've tried to teach that to every nurse I've trained, and I always tell them about you." I felt tears prick my eyes. "That's very kind. It's the truth. Will you come? Will you speak? I don't know what I'd say." "Say whatever you want. Tell stories. Share wisdom. Just be yourself. That's all anyone needs. Be yourself. Such a simple instruction. So hard to follow when you've spent years being someone else." "Okay," I said. "I'll do it." "Wonderful. I'll send you all the details. And Maggie?" "Yes. It's really good to hear your voice again." I hung up and sat there holding the phone, thinking about all the years I'd wasted being invisible, all the times I'd shrunk myself to fit into spaces that were too small, all the moments I'd let pass because I didn't think I deserved more. That was over now. The next few weeks were busy in a way I hadn't experienced in years. I started writing my speech for the reunion. I went through old photos and journals, remembering the person I used to be. I had lunch with Helen twice a week and started taking walks in the morning just to feel the sun on my face. Emma visited every Saturday. She'd show up on the bus, we'd bake something together, and then we'd talk about everything and nothing. School friends' books she was reading, dreams she had for the future. She never mentioned her mother during those visits. Neither did I. Jenny called once a week, short conversations, awkward and stilted. She asked about my health, about the weather, about whether I needed anything. She never asked how I was feeling. She never apologized again. She never really showed up. But she was trying in her limited way, and I decided that was enough. For now. The day before the reunion, I went shopping for a new dress. Not navy blue, not something modest and forgettable. I found a deep burgundy dress that fit like it was made for me. Bold, visible, the kind of dress that said I was here and I wasn't going anywhere. Helen cried when she saw it. "That's my Maggie," she said. "That's the woman I remember." The reunion was held in the hospital auditorium, the same room where I'd attended countless meetings and trainings decades ago. Walking through those doors felt like stepping back in time. There were faces I recognized, faces that had aged, but were still familiar. Nurses I'd trained, doctors I'd worked with, administrators who'd fought with me over budgets and policies and patient care. They greeted me like I was someone important. They shook my hand, hugged me, told me stories I'd forgotten about myself. "Remember the night we had 3 emergency deliveries at once? You were everywhere. It was like watching a general command a battlefield. You sat with me after my first patient died. Didn't say anything, just sat there. You taught me that medicine is about people, not procedures. I've never forgotten." By the time I reached the stage, I was crying, not from sadness, from something else, something that felt like coming home. The speech I'd prepared was good, but I didn't use it. Instead, I looked out at the crowd of faces, old and young, and I spoke from the heart. "I've spent the last 12 years being invisible," I said. "I let myself disappear one piece at a time until I wasn't sure who I was anymore. But standing here tonight looking at all of you, I remember the woman who delivered babies at 3 in the morning and held hands with dying patients and fought for every life that came through those doors. I remember her, and I'm finally ready to be her again." The applause was thunderous. People stood, some were crying, and somewhere in the back of the room I saw a figure slip through the doors. A woman in a cream-colored blouse and expensive shoes, her face pale, her eyes wide. Jenny. She'd come. I finished my speech without acknowledging her. I accepted the award they gave me, posed for photos, thanked everyone who'd made this possible. But later, after the crowd had thinned, I found her standing by the exit, looking lost. "How did you know I was here?" I asked. "Emma told me. She said it was important." "It is." And Jenny looked at me in my burgundy dress, my hospital badge pinned to my chest, my face still wet from happy tears. "You were incredible up there," she said. "I've never seen you like that." "You've never looked." She flinched. "That's fair." We stood there in silence. The auditorium was empty now, just the 2 of us and 100 echoes. "I want to fix this," Jenny said. "I don't know how, but I want to try. Really try, not just say the words. Then stop saying them. Start showing me." "How?" "You could start by being here, not because you need something, not because Emma told you to, because you actually want to know your mother." Her eyes filled with tears. "I do want that. I've always wanted that. I just got so lost along the way." "Then find your way back." She nodded. "Will you help me?" I thought about everything that had happened. The bus stop, the wedding, the photos, the silence, all those years of giving until I had nothing left. And I thought about the woman I used to be, the one who fought for her patients, who never gave up, who believed that everyone deserved a second chance. "Yes," I said, "but not because you're my daughter, because you're finally asking the right question." We walked out of the hospital together. The night air was cold and the stars were bright. I didn't know what would happen next. I didn't know if Jenny would keep her promise, or if she'd slip back into old patterns, or if our relationship would ever really heal. But I knew one thing for certain. I was done being invisible. I was done waiting at bus stops. I was done shrinking myself to fit into someone else's life. From now on, I would take up space. I would be seen. I would matter. And if Jenny wanted to be part of that, she would have to earn it. The weeks after the reunion were strange. Not bad. Just strange. Like walking through a house where someone has rearranged all the furniture. Everything looked familiar, but nothing felt quite right. Jenny called every few days now. Real calls, not just quick check-ins. She asked about my morning walks, about Helen, about the garden I'd started in the backyard. Small talk mostly. But it was a start. Then one Tuesday afternoon, she called with something different in her voice. "Mom, can I come over? There's something I need to tell you." "Is Emma okay?" "Emma's fine. This is about me." I hesitated. "When?" "Now, if that's all right, I'm already in the car." She arrived 20 minutes later, looking thinner than I remembered. The confident lawyer persona was gone. In its place was a woman who looked like she hadn't slept in days. "Do you want coffee?" I asked. "No, I need to say this before I lose my nerve." We sat in the living room. She perched on the edge of the couch, hands clasped in her lap, knuckles white. "David and I are separating." The words hit me like cold water. "What?" "It's been coming for a while. Since the wedding, really. Maybe before that." "Jenny, what happened?" She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "What didn't happen?" "The money situation got worse after you stopped the payments. I had to tell David the truth about how we were really paying for things. He was furious, said I'd been lying to him for years." "Were you?" "Yes. I let him think we were doing fine on our own. I let him think his salary and my salary covered everything. I was too proud to admit my mother was keeping us afloat. And now he says he can't trust me. His parents are even worse. They act like I'm some kind of gold digger who was hiding debts from their precious son." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to comfort her. Part of me wanted to point out that this was a consequence of her own choices. "What about Emma?" I asked. "She knows. We told her last week." Jenny's voice cracked. "She's being so brave about it. Too brave. She's 13, Mom. She shouldn't have to be this strong." "Where is she now?" "With David at his parents' house. They're discussing arrangements." She spat the word like it was poison. "Carolyn Hartwell is probably already planning which room Emma will sleep in when she visits. Like my daughter is just another asset to be divided up." "Jenny." I know. I'm being dramatic. But you don't understand what it's like dealing with those people. Everything is about appearances. Everything is about control." "I understand better than you think." She looked at me, and something shifted in her eyes. "Because of the wedding. Because of everything. The way you talked about me. The way you let them treat me. I've been dealing with the Hartwells too, Jenny, just from the other side." She nodded slowly. "I'm sorry. I've said it before, but I mean it. I am so sorry." "I know. I thought if I could just make them like me, everything would work out. I thought if I could fit into their world, I'd finally feel like I belonged somewhere. And now I don't belong anywhere." Her voice broke completely. "I've lost my marriage. I'm about to lose my house. My own daughter is being fought over like furniture, and I have no one to blame but myself." I moved to the couch and sat beside her, not touching, but close, present. "You haven't lost Emma," I said, "and you haven't lost me." She looked up, her face wet with tears. "After everything I did, after everything, I'm still here. I'm still your mother. Nothing changes that. I don't deserve you." "No, you don't." I said it gently, but I didn't take it back. "But I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it because it's who I am. I don't throw people away, Jenny, even when they hurt me." She started sobbing then, real sobs, the kind that shake your whole body. I pulled her into my arms the way I used to when she was small, when the monsters under her bed seemed like the worst thing in the world. We sat there for a long time. When she finally pulled away, her makeup was ruined and her eyes were swollen, but she looked more like herself than she had in years. "What do I do now?" she asked. "You fight for your daughter. You get a good lawyer. You figure out who you are without the Hartwells defining you." "I don't know who that is anymore." "Then you find out. It's not too late." She wiped her face with the back of her hand. "Will you help me?" "I'll be here, but this is your fight, Jenny. I can't do it for you." "I know." She took a shaky breath. "Can I stay for dinner? I don't want to go back to an empty house." I nodded. "I'll make your father's beef stew." She smiled through her tears. "You remember that?" "I remember everything." We cooked together that night, side by side in my kitchen, chopping vegetables and browning meat, not talking much but not needing to. It was the first time we'd done anything together in years. Real together, not just sitting in the same room while she checked her phone. At one point, she stopped cutting carrots and looked at me. "Mom." "Yes." "Why didn't you ever give up on me even when I was awful?" I considered the question. "Because I remember who you used to be, and I always believed that person was still in there somewhere." "What if she's not?" "She is. I can see her right now." Jenny went back to cutting carrots, but I saw her wipe her eyes with her sleeve. After dinner, she stayed to wash the dishes. Another thing she hadn't done in years. I dried while she washed, and we fell into the old rhythm without thinking about it. "I'm going to fight for custody," she said suddenly. "Primary custody. I won't let the Hartwells take Emma away from me." "Good. They have more money, better lawyers, more connections. So they could win." "They could, or you could fight harder than they expect. You didn't become a lawyer by accident, Jenny. You know how to fight." "I haven't felt like fighting in a long time." "Then find the feeling again. Emma needs you to be strong." She handed me the last dish and turned to face me. "Will you be there in court, I mean, if it goes to trial?" "Yes. Even after everything?" "Even after everything." She hugged me then. Really hugged me, not the stiff formal thing we'd been doing for years. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank me when you win." She left around 9 looking exhausted, but somehow lighter. I watched her drive away and wondered if this was the beginning of something new or just another false start. The phone rang at 7 the next morning. I was already awake, already drinking my coffee, already thinking about what came next. "Mrs. Sullivan," a voice I didn't recognize, male professional cold. "Yes, this is Marcus Webb. I'm an attorney representing David Hartwell and his family. Do you have a moment to speak?" I set down my coffee cup. "What is this about?" "I understand you've made some recent changes to your estate plan, changes that significantly impact your daughter's expected inheritance." My blood went cold. "How do you know about that?" "That's not relevant. What is relevant is that my clients are concerned about the timing of these changes. They're considering whether undue influence may have been involved." "Undue influence? I made those decisions myself." "Of course you did. But Jennifer has been visiting you quite frequently lately, hasn't she? And there's the matter of her current financial difficulties. It wouldn't be unreasonable to wonder whether she's been pressuring you to make certain arrangements. That's absurd. Jenny doesn't even know about the changes. Doesn't she?" "No, and even if she did, it's none of your business, or the Hartwells." "Mrs. Sullivan, I'm just trying to have a civil conversation. My clients are concerned about Emma's future. They want to ensure that any inheritance she might receive is properly managed. Emma's inheritance is in a trust. It's protected. Managed by whom? None of your concern." "I see." His voice turned harder. "Mrs. Sullivan, I'm going to be direct. The Hartwells are prepared to petition for full custody of Emma. They believe Jennifer is an unfit mother who has been hiding financial problems and making reckless decisions. If it comes out that you've been manipulating estate documents to benefit Jennifer at Emma's expense, that will not look good for anyone." "I haven't manipulated anything, and I haven't benefited Jennifer. In fact, I've removed her from my will entirely." Silence on the other end. "I'm sorry, what did you say?" "I said Jenny isn't inheriting anything from me. Emma is. Through a trust that protects her money from exactly the kind of vultures you represent." More silence. Then coldly, "I see. Well, that's an interesting development. I'll convey this information to my clients. You do that. And Mr. Webb, yes. If you or anyone else tries to interfere with my estate planning again, I'll make sure Emma knows exactly what kind of people her father's family really are. Every conversation, every threat, every attempt to control something that isn't yours to control. That sounds like a threat, Mrs. Sullivan. It's a promise. Have a good day. I hung up and stood there shaking, not from fear, from rage. Those people, those entitled, grasping, manipulative people. They weren't content with pushing me out of my daughter's life. Now they wanted to control my granddaughter, too. I called Helen immediately. They did what she said when I told her about the conversation. They're investigating my estate changes, trying to find leverage for the custody battle. How did they even find out? I don't know. Someone at the lawyer's office, maybe? Or Jenny told David something and he told his parents. Maggie, this is serious. They're going to use this against Jenny. I know. What are you going to do? I'm going to call Mr. Harrington, and then I'm going to make sure those documents are airtight, and then I'm going to find a way to help Jenny without giving them ammunition. How? I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out. I called Mr. Harrington's office and was told he could see me that afternoon. I spent the morning pacing, drinking too much coffee, thinking about strategy. Jenny called around noon. Mom, I just got served with papers. David's filing for primary custody. He's claiming I'm financially irresponsible and emotionally unstable. I know. His lawyer called me this morning. What, why? He wanted to know about my estate changes. He was fishing for information. What did you tell him? The truth, that you're not inheriting anything, that everything goes to Emma through a protected trust. Silence on the line. You disinherited me. Jenny's voice was small. Yes, I did it weeks ago, after the wedding. But you never said anything. I was going to, eventually, when the time was right. And the time is right now, when I'm fighting for custody of my daughter. Jenny, listen to me. This actually helps you. If I left everything to you, the Hartwells could argue you were manipulating me. They could claim you were pressuring me for money. But if everything goes to Emma, there's nothing for them to attack. Except my own mother doesn't trust me enough to leave me anything. That's not what this is about. Isn't it? No, it's about protecting Emma. It's about making sure she has something that can't be taken away by lawyers or judges or greedy in-laws. Jenny was quiet for a long moment. Then, I need to think about this. Jenny, wait. I'll call you later. She hung up. I stared at the phone, my heart pounding. Had I just made everything worse? At Mr. Harrington's office, I explained everything. The phone call from the Hartwell lawyer, Jenny's custody battle, my fear that the estate changes would be used against her. He listened carefully, then shook his head. Mrs. Sullivan, you have nothing to worry about. Your estate documents are private. The Hartwells have no legal right to access them. Then how did they know? Speculation, probably. They're fishing, trying to rattle you into revealing information they don't actually have. But what if they subpoena the documents during the custody trial? They can try, but estate planning is typically not relevant to custody proceedings. Unless they can prove some kind of fraud or undue influence, which they can't, your documents will remain confidential. What about Jenny? Can this hurt her case? Honestly, it might help her. If you've structured things to benefit Emma directly, that shows you believe Emma should be with her mother. Why else would you set up a trust for a child whose father's family has plenty of money? I hadn't thought of it that way. Is there anything else I should do? I asked. Keep records of every interaction with the Hartwells or their representatives. Document everything. And if they contact you again, refer them to me. Thank you. He walked me to the door, then paused. Mrs. Sullivan, may I offer some personal advice? Of course. Talk to your daughter. Really talk to her. She needs to understand that what you've done isn't punishment. It's protection. She won't see it that way. Then help her see it. Before the Hartwells twist it into something it's not. I drove to Jenny's house without calling first. If she was going to be angry with me, I wanted to face it directly. No more hiding, no more avoiding difficult conversations. She opened the door looking like she hadn't slept. Her eyes were red, her hair uncombed. The house behind her was dark. "Mom, what are you doing here?" "We need to talk, really talk." "I'm not in the mood." "I know, but this can't wait." She stepped aside and let me in. The living room was a mess, moving boxes stacked against the wall, papers scattered across the coffee table, a half-empty bottle of wine on the counter. "David came for his things yesterday," she said. "Took everything that was his, some things that were mine." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. I'm past the crying phase. Now I'm in the angry phase." "Good. Angry is useful." She almost smiled. "You would say that." We sat down across from each other. The same positions we'd been in 100 times before. Mother and daughter, adversaries and allies. "I need to explain about the inheritance," I said. "You don't owe me an explanation." "Yes, I do. Because you're not understanding what I did. You're hearing rejection when I'm offering protection." "Protection from what?" "From them, the Hartwells. From their lawyers and their money and their endless need to control everything around them. By cutting me out, by making sure they can't use me against you." I leaned forward. "Think about it, Jenny. If I left everything to you, they would claim I was being manipulated. They would say you were pressuring me for money. They would use it to prove you're financially reckless. And by leaving it all to Emma, I take that weapon away. The money goes to your daughter in a trust that no one can touch. Not you, not David, not the Hartwells. It's Emma's and only Emma's." Jenny was quiet. I could see her processing the lawyer in her waking up. "They can't claim undue influence if the beneficiary is a minor," she said slowly. "Exactly. And they can't argue you're playing favorites if Emma is the only grandchild." "Right. And if the trust is structured properly, it's completely separate from the divorce proceedings. Mr. Harrington made sure of that." Jenny looked at me with new eyes. "You planned this. You thought it through." I had a lot of sleepless nights to think. "Mom, I'm sorry. I assumed the worst." "You had reason to. I haven't always been clear about my intentions." "Neither have I." She rubbed her face with her hands. "God, what a mess. A month ago I was married. I had a house. I had a life. Now I'm getting divorced, fighting for custody, and finding out my mother is better at legal strategy than I am. I had a good teacher. Your father was always 3 steps ahead of everyone." "I remember." Her voice softened. "I miss him, especially now." "So do I." We sat in silence for a moment. Then Jenny said, "The custody hearing is in 3 weeks. David's lawyers are pushing for a fast resolution." "Is that good or bad?" "Bad usually. It means they're confident. Or they want to catch me off guard." "What do you need?" "A better lawyer, probably. Mine is fine, but the Hartwells have a whole firm." "Can you afford someone better?" "No." She laughed bitterly. "That's the irony. All those years you supported me, and I never saved anything. I just spent it assuming more would always come." I thought about the money in my savings account, the money I'd been planning to leave to Emma anyway. Would it hurt to spend some of it now to help Jenny win the fight that would determine Emma's future? "How much would it cost?" I asked. "Mom, no, I can't ask you for money, not after everything." "You're not asking, I'm offering." "It's too much, 20,000 at least, probably more." I nodded. "I'll have it transferred tomorrow." "Mom, it's an investment in Emma's well-being. If you lose custody, the money I've set aside for her won't matter. She'll be with those people and they'll poison her against both of us." Jenny's eyes filled with tears. "Why are you doing this after the wedding, after the bus stop, after everything I put you through? Why do you keep helping me?" "Because you're my daughter, because Emma is my granddaughter, and because despite everything I still believe you can be the mother she deserves. What if I can't? Then I'll be wrong, but I'd rather be wrong and try than be right and do nothing." She came over to me then, knelt down beside my chair and put her head in my lap, the way she used to when she was little. I stroked her hair and felt the years fall away. "I'm going to fight," she whispered. "I'm going to fight so hard." "I know you will. And I'm going to win. For Emma, for you, for all of us. I believe you." She looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. "I love you, Mom. I know I don't say it enough. I know I don't show it right. But I do. I love you too, Jenny. I always have, even when it hurt. Especially when it hurt." I nodded. Especially then. She stayed for dinner again that night. We ordered pizza because neither of us had the energy to cook. We talked about strategy, about lawyers, about what to expect at the custody hearing. Around 10 o'clock, there was a knock at the door. Jenny froze. Who would come here this late? I went to the door and looked through the peephole. My heart stopped. It was Carolyn Hartwell, standing on Jenny's porch, alone. "Mom." Jenny came up behind me. "Who is it?" I opened the door. Carolyn stood there in her designer coat and perfect makeup, looking at us like we were something stuck to the bottom of her shoe. "Good evening," she said. "I think it's time we had a conversation, woman to woman." Jenny moved beside me. "You shouldn't be here. David's lawyers said no contact." "David's lawyers don't speak for me." Carolyn's eyes moved from Jenny to me. "May I come in, or shall we do this on the porch where the neighbors can watch?" I looked at Jenny. She gave a tiny nod. 5 minutes, I said. "Then you leave." Carolyn walked into the house like she owned it, like she owned everything. She looked around at the moving boxes and the mess and smiled slightly, as if our chaos confirmed everything she believed about us. "Well," she said, "this is cozy." "What do you want, Carolyn?" Jenny's voice was hard. "I want to offer you a deal, mother to mother." She turned to me. "Or should I say grandmother to grandmother?" "I'm listening," I said. "This custody battle is going to be ugly, expensive, damaging to everyone, especially Emma. I propose we avoid all of that unpleasantness." "How?" "Joint custody, 50-50. Emma spends half her time with David, half with Jennifer. We split expenses equally, no dragging each other through court." Jenny crossed her arms. "That's what my lawyer proposed a week ago. David rejected it." "David was angry. He's less angry now, and I've helped him see reason." "What's the catch?" Carolyn's smile widened. "There's always a catch, isn't there, Fine? Here it is. In exchange for our cooperation, we want certain guarantees regarding Emma's future." "What kind of guarantees?" "Educational decisions. We want input on her schooling, and we want assurances that she'll continue to spend holidays with our family. The Hartwell traditions are important." "Traditions like excluding people from weddings," I heard myself say. Carolyn's eyes flicked to me, cold assessing. "That was a mistake, one that Jennifer agreed to, I might remind you." "I didn't agree," Jenny said. "I went along with it because I was afraid of you. Afraid of not fitting in, afraid of being judged, afraid of losing the life I thought I wanted." Jenny straightened her spine. "I'm not afraid anymore." "How brave!" Carolyn's voice dripped contempt. "But bravery won't win in family court. Money wins, lawyers win, connections win, and we have all three. Then why are you here offering deals?" Carolyn was silent for a moment, then grudgingly, "Because my son still loves you. God knows why. And because Emma loves you. And because despite what you might think of me, I don't actually want to destroy my granddaughter's family. I just want to protect her. By controlling everything around her, by ensuring she has stability, structure, the best opportunities. Opportunities to become what another Hartwell robot programmed to look down on everyone who doesn't have a trust fund." Carolyn's face hardened. "Careful, Jennifer. I'm trying to help you." "You're trying to help yourself. You want Emma on your terms, in your image, and you want me to be grateful for whatever scraps you throw my way. I'm offering you your daughter, 50% custody, and 50% control." They stared at each other. Two mothers, two visions of what Emma's life should look like. I stepped between them. "Let me ask you something, Carolyn. If our situations were reversed and I was the one with money and power and I was trying to take your granddaughter away from you, what would you do?" She looked at me with something like surprise, as if she'd forgotten I could speak. "I would fight," she said. "Then you understand why we're fighting." "I understand. I just think you're going to lose." "Maybe, but at least Emma will know we tried. At least she'll know her mother didn't just hand her over to people who think love is something you buy." Carolyn's expression flickered. For just a moment, I thought I saw something human underneath all that polish. "You don't know anything about me," she said quietly. "I know you walked my daughter down the aisle because you thought I wasn't good enough. I know you let your son marry a woman whose mother you'd never even had dinner with. I know you've spent 4 years treating me like furniture and expecting me to be grateful I was in the room at all." That wasn't personal. It felt personal. Standing on that bus stop, waiting for someone who wasn't coming, it felt very personal. Carolyn looked away. When she looked back, her face was composed again, but something had shifted. "I'll tell David you rejected the offer," she said. "I hope you're prepared for what comes next." "We are," Jenny said. "Now please leave." Carolyn walked to the door, paused with her hand on the knob. "For what it's worth," she said, "I didn't know about the bus stop. David told me you couldn't make it. Health problems, he said. And you believed him. I believed what was convenient to believe. I'm sure you understand that feeling." She left without another word. Jenny collapsed onto the couch. "That was insane. Did that just happen?" "It happened. She came here to threaten us, dressed up as an olive branch." "I know." "And I told her no. I actually told her no." "You did?" Jenny looked at me with something like wonder. "I've never done that before. Never stood up to her. Never stood up to any of them." "How did it feel?" She laughed. "Terrifying, but also, I don't know, good right. Hold on to that feeling. You're going to need it." "Mom." She reached out and took my hand. "Thank you for being here, for saying what you said." I meant every word. "I know. That's what made it powerful." I squeezed her hand. "We should get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a long day." "They're all going to be long days until this is over. Then we'll face them together, one at a time." Jenny smiled. For the first time in weeks, it reached her eyes. "Together," she said. "I like the sound of that." The courthouse was colder than I expected. Not just the temperature, but the feeling. Everything was hard surfaces and fluorescent lights and the echo of footsteps on marble floors. I sat in the hallway outside the courtroom, my hands clasped in my lap, watching people pass by. Lawyers in expensive suits, families with tight faces, children who didn't understand why they were here. Emma sat beside me. Jenny had asked me to wait with her while she went over last-minute details with her lawyer. We'd been sitting in silence for 20 minutes. "Grandma," Emma's voice was small. "Yes, sweetheart. What if the judge says I have to live with Dad?" I turned to look at her. 13 years old. Too young for any of this. Too old to be protected from it. "Then you'll live with your dad," I said, "and you'll visit your mom, and nothing will change how much either of them loves you. But what if Dad's family tries to change me? Mom says they want to turn me into a Hartwell." "Nobody can turn you into anything you don't want to be. You're Emma. That's who you'll always be." She leaned her head against my shoulder. "I'm scared." "I know. I'm scared too." "You don't seem scared." "I've had practice hiding it." She almost smiled. "Will you teach me?" "I'll teach you something better. How to be brave even when you're terrified." The courtroom doors opened, and Jenny emerged, her lawyer close behind. She looked pale but determined. The Jenny I remembered from law school graduation. The Jenny who used to believe she could do anything. "It's time," she said. We filed into the courtroom. The Hartwells were already there. David in a dark suit looking like he'd aged 10 years. His parents flanking him like generals preparing for battle. Their lawyer Marcus Webb shuffling papers with practiced efficiency. I sat in the gallery behind Jenny. Emma sat beside me. We held hands. The judge was a woman in her 60s with silver hair and sharp eyes. Judge Patricia Morrison. She looked like someone who had seen everything and wasn't impressed by any of it. "This is a custody hearing in the matter of Hartwell versus Hartwell," she said. "We're here to determine the residential and custodial arrangements for the minor child Emma Grace Hartwell. Is counsel ready to proceed?" Both lawyers stood. "Ready, Your Honor." "Then let's begin." The next 2 hours were brutal. David's lawyer painted Jenny as financially irresponsible, emotionally unstable, a woman who had hidden debts from her husband and relied on her elderly mother for support. Mrs. Hartwell was receiving over $3,000 per month from her mother, Webb said, money that she concealed from her husband, money that has since been cut off, leaving her unable to maintain her household. Jenny's lawyer, a woman named Sarah Chen, pushed back. My client's financial arrangement with her mother was a private family matter. It has no bearing on her ability to parent. It speaks to her judgment, her honesty, her ability to manage the responsibilities of raising a child. Back and forth, point and counterpoint. Emma's hand tightened in mine with every accusation. Then Webb called his first witness, Carolyn Hartwell. She walked to the stand like she was walking onto a stage. Perfect posture, perfect composure. She placed her hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth with all the sincerity of a woman ordering lunch. Mrs. Hartwell, Webb began, can you describe your relationship with your granddaughter? Emma is the light of our lives. We've been involved in her care since she was born. School pickups, holidays, vacations. We've always been present. And your relationship with the child's mother, Carolyn paused. Jennifer is a complicated woman. I've tried to welcome her into our family. I've tried to support her, but there have been challenges. What kind of challenges? She's secretive. She kept financial problems hidden from my son. She's sometimes unpredictable in her behavior, and she has a tendency to prioritize her own needs over Emma's. Jenny stiffened beside her lawyer. I saw her hands curl into fists. Can you give an example? Certainly. Last year, Emma had a school play. She was the lead. Jennifer was supposed to be there, but she called at the last minute to say she couldn't make it. Work emergency, she claimed. My husband and I attended instead. Emma was devastated. Were there other instances like this? Several. Birthday parties she missed. Parent-teacher conferences she forgot. There's a pattern of unreliability. I watched Jenny's face. She was struggling to stay composed. I knew some of what Carolyn was saying was true. Jenny had missed things. She had been unreliable. But watching Carolyn twist those failures into weapons made my blood boil. Sarah Chen stood for cross-examination. Mrs. Hartwell, you mentioned welcoming Jennifer into your family. Did you include her in family events? Of course. All family events. Carolyn's smile faltered slightly. The significant ones. What about your son's wedding, Jennifer's wedding? Was Jennifer's mother included in that event? Webb shot to his feet. Objection. Relevance. Goes to witness credibility, Your Honor. Judge Morrison nodded. I'll allow it. Carolyn smoothed her skirt. The wedding was a private family matter. The question, Mrs. Hartwell, was Jennifer's mother invited to the wedding ceremony? There were space constraints. Yes or no? A pause. No. Was she invited to the reception? No. Was she in fact asked to wait at a bus stop while the wedding took place with a promise that she would be picked up afterward? Carolyn's composure cracked. I don't know the details of those arrangements. But you do know that Jennifer's mother, the grandmother of the child we're discussing today, was excluded from her own daughter's wedding. Is that correct? I believe there were logistical issues. Logistical issues. Mrs. Hartwell, you testified that you've tried to welcome Jennifer into your family. Would you say excluding her mother from the wedding was welcoming? That was Jennifer's decision, not mine. Was it, or was it a decision made by your family with your approval to ensure that certain people didn't appear in the wedding photos? Webb was on his feet again. Objection. Counsel is badgering the witness. Withdrawn. Sarah Chen turned to the judge. No further questions. Carolyn stepped down from the stand, her face tight with controlled fury. As she passed me, our eyes met. I didn't look away. The hearing continued. Character witnesses, financial records, expert testimony about child development and parental fitness. By the time they called Jenny to the stand, my head was pounding, and Emma had stopped squeezing my hand. She'd gone somewhere else in her mind, somewhere far from this cold room with its hard chairs and harder words. Jenny walked to the witness stand. She looked small up there, vulnerable. Nothing like the confident lawyer she'd been trained to be. Sarah Chen led her through the basics, her education, her career, her love for Emma. Then she asked the question I knew was coming. Jennifer, there's been testimony today about financial support you received from your mother. Can you explain that arrangement? Jenny took a breath. After my father died, My mother was alone. I was her only child. She wanted to help me and I let her. I should have been more independent. I should have been honest with David about our finances. I wasn't. That's my failure. Why weren't you honest? Because I was ashamed. Her voice cracked. I grew up without money. My mother worked double shifts to pay for my education. When I met David, when I saw his family's life, I wanted to fit in. I wanted to be like them, and I couldn't admit that I wasn't. Did you hide other things from your husband? No, just the money, just my mother's help, and your mother. You've heard testimony about excluding her from your wedding. Is that accurate? Jenny closed her eyes. Yes. Can you explain why? Because I was a coward. Because I was so desperate to impress David's family that I sacrificed my own mother. I let her sit at a bus stop for 6 hours while I danced at my reception. I let her become invisible so I could feel like I belonged. She opened her eyes and looked directly at me. That's the worst thing I've ever done. I'll regret it for the rest of my life. The courtroom was silent. Has your relationship with your mother changed since then? Yes, we're rebuilding. Slowly. She's shown me more grace than I deserve. She's shown me what real love looks like. Not the kind you perform for an audience, the kind that stays even when you don't deserve it. Webb stood for cross-examination. His face was hungry. Mrs. Hartwell, you just admitted to lying to your husband for years. Why should this court believe anything you say? Because I'm not lying anymore. You say you're rebuilding your relationship with your mother. But isn't it true that your mother recently removed you from her will? Jenny nodded. Yes. Removed you entirely, left everything to your daughter instead. That's correct. Doesn't that suggest that even your own mother doesn't trust you? Jenny was quiet for a moment. Then she said, No. It suggests that my mother loves Emma more than she loves her own hurt feelings. She set up that trust to protect my daughter from exactly this kind of fight. She knew people like you would try to use money as a weapon, so she took the weapon away. Webb's face reddened. You're speculating about your mother's motives. No, I'm telling you what she told me. My mother doesn't hide things. She doesn't manipulate. She says what she means and means what she says. That's something I'm still learning from her. No further questions. Webb sat down hard. Judge Morrison looked at Sarah Chen. Does counsel have any additional witnesses? Sarah stood. Yes, Your Honor. We'd like to call Margaret Sullivan. My heart stopped. Jenny hadn't warned me. We hadn't prepared. I walked to the witness stand on legs that felt like water. The Bible was cool under my palm. I swore to tell the truth and sat down looking out at the room full of strangers who were about to decide my granddaughter's future. Mrs. Sullivan, Sarah began, can you describe your relationship with your granddaughter? Emma is the best thing in my life. She's kind and smart and thoughtful. She sees people, really sees them. That's rare at any age. And your relationship with your daughter, Jennifer? I looked at Jenny. She was staring at me with something like fear. Our relationship has been complicated, I said. For many years, I gave too much and she took too much. We both made mistakes, but we're trying to fix them. There's been testimony about the wedding. Can you tell us what happened that day? I took a breath. My daughter asked me to wait at a bus stop near the venue. She said she'd pick me up after the reception. She never came. I waited 6 hours. Then I walked home. How did that make you feel? Like I didn't exist, like 40 years of being her mother could be erased with one decision. I paused. But I've had time to think about it. And I've realized something. My daughter didn't do that because she's cruel. She did it because she was lost. She was so busy trying to be someone else that she forgot who she was. And who is she? She's my daughter. She's Emma's mother. She's a woman who makes mistakes just like everyone else. But she's also someone who's trying to change, trying to be better. That's all any of us can do. Mrs. Sullivan, you've heard the Hartwells' concerns about Jennifer's fitness as a mother. What's your response? I looked at Carolyn, at David, at their wall of expensive lawyers and tailored suits. My response is that fitness isn't measured by bank accounts or designer clothes or the right address. Fitness is measured by showing up, by being present, by loving your child even when it's hard. I turn back to the judge. I've watched both families in this case. I've seen the Hartwells try to control everything around them, and I've seen my daughter fight to become someone her child can be proud of. I know which family I'd want raising my granddaughter. Webb stood. Objection. The witness is offering opinion, not testimony. Sustained. Judge Morrison looked at me. Mrs. Sullivan, please confine yourself to facts. The facts are simple, Your Honor. My daughter loves Emma. Emma loves her mother. Breaking that bond won't protect anyone. It'll just create more pain. No further questions, Sarah said. Webb approached me like a shark circling prey. Mrs. Sullivan, you testified that you gave too much and your daughter took too much. What did you mean by that? I meant that I enabled her. I paid her bills instead of letting her learn to stand on her own. I made excuses for her behavior instead of holding her accountable. So, you admit your daughter has a pattern of irresponsibility. I admit we both have patterns we're trying to break. You also changed your will to exclude her entirely. Is that correct? Yes. Why? Because I wanted to protect Emma. I wanted to make sure she had resources that couldn't be touched by anyone, not her mother, not her father, not the Hartwells. That sounds like you don't trust any of them. I trust Emma. I trust that she'll grow up to be a good person regardless of what happens in this courtroom. But I also know that money makes people do ugly things. I've seen it in this case. I wanted to take that variable off the table. So you made a unilateral decision about your estate without consulting your daughter? Yes. Just as you made decisions about paying her bills without consulting her husband. That's different. Is it, or is there a pattern here of women in your family making secret financial decisions and expecting everyone else to live with the consequences? I felt my temper rise. The only pattern I see is a family trying to buy a child because they can't stand losing control. Your Honor, Webb said, his voice sharp. I move to strike that response. Stricken. Judge Morrison gave me a warning look. Mrs. Sullivan, please answer only the questions asked. I apologize, Your Honor. Webb circled back to his seat. No further questions. I stepped down from the witness stand. My legs were shaking. I took my seat beside Emma, and she immediately reached for my hand. You did good, Grandma, she whispered. I hope so. The closing arguments were what you'd expect. Webb painted Jenny as unstable and deceptive. Sarah painted the Hartwells as controlling and manipulative. The judge listened with an expression that gave nothing away. When it was over, Judge Morrison removed her glasses and rubbed her eyes. I'm going to take a brief recess to review the testimony, she said. When I return, I'll render my decision. She stood and left through a door behind the bench. The courtroom erupted in whispered conversations. Jenny turned to me, her face white. What do you think? I don't know. I couldn't read her. Could you read her? No. Emma stood up. I need some air. Can I wait in the hallway? Of course, sweetheart. She walked out. I watched her go, my heart breaking for everything she'd had to witness today. Mom, Jenny said, whatever happens, thank you. For what you said up there, for being here. I wouldn't be anywhere else. If I lose her, you won't. But if I do, I took her hand. Then we fight again, and again, until there's nothing left to fight. That's what mothers do. She nodded, her eyes filling with tears. That's what mothers do. The recess lasted 45 minutes. 45 minutes of pacing and praying and trying not to throw up. When the bailiff finally called us back, my legs felt like they belonged to someone else. Judge Morrison returned to the bench. She looked tired. She looked like someone about to do something she didn't enjoy. I've reviewed the testimony in this case, she began. I've heard from both parties. I've listened to character witnesses and expert testimony, and I've tried to determine what arrangement serves the best interests of the child. She paused. The courtroom held its breath. Custody cases are always difficult, But this one has been particularly challenging because there are no clear villains. Both parents love their daughter. Both families want what they believe is best for her. The question is, whose version of best should prevail? She looked at David, then at Jenny, then surprisingly at me. I was struck by something Mrs. Sullivan said on the stand. She said that fitness is measured by showing up, by being present, by loving your child even when it's hard. She paused. I've been a family court judge for 23 years. I've seen parents fight over children like their property. I've seen families torn apart by money and ego and the inability to put a child's needs first. And I've learned that the best predictor of a child's well-being isn't wealth or status or perfect circumstances. It's the presence of at least one adult who shows up consistently no matter what. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. In this case, I've seen evidence that Jennifer Hartwell has made mistakes. She's been financially irresponsible. She's been secretive. She's struggled to balance her own needs with her daughter's. Judge Morrison's voice softened. But I've also seen evidence that she's trying to change, that she's taken responsibility for her failures, that she's willing to fight for her daughter, not for control or pride, but because she loves her. I saw Jenny's shoulders start to shake. I've also seen evidence that the Hartwell family, while genuinely concerned for Emma's welfare, has a tendency toward control that I find troubling. The testimony about excluding Jennifer's mother from the wedding was particularly revealing, not because it's relevant to parenting capacity, but because it speaks to a family culture that prioritizes image over substance, appearances over relationships. Carolyn's face went rigid. Therefore, it is the judgment of this court that primary custody of Emma Grace Hartwell be awarded to her mother, Jennifer Hartwell. The sound that came from Jenny was half sob, half gasp. She covered her mouth with her hands. The father, David Hartwell, will have visitation rights on alternating weekends and specified holidays to be determined by the parties or by this court if they cannot agree. I strongly encourage both families to prioritize Emma's emotional well-being over their own conflicts going forward. She looked directly at the Hartwells. I also want to make something clear. If I hear of any attempts to alienate Emma from either parent or to use financial pressure to undermine these custody arrangements, I will not hesitate to revisit this decision. Am I understood? Yes, Your Honor, both lawyers said simultaneously. Good. We're adjourned. The gavel came down, and just like that, it was over. Jenny turned to me and fell into my arms crying so hard she couldn't speak. I held her the way I'd held her when she was small, when the world was scary, and I was the only one who could make it better. You did it, I whispered. You won. We won, she said. We. Emma came running in from the hallway. She must have been watching through the window. She threw herself at her mother, and the three of us stood there holding each other, crying and laughing and not caring who saw. Across the courtroom, I saw the Hartwells gathering their things. Carolyn looked shell-shocked. David looked lost. Even Marcus Webb seemed deflated. As they walked past us, David stopped. Jenny, he said quietly. She pulled back from our embrace and looked at him. I'm sorry, he said. For all of it. I never wanted it to be like this. I know. Can we, I don't know, start over, not as a couple, but as Emma's parents? Jenny wiped her eyes. I'd like that. He nodded, looked at Emma. I love you, sweetheart. That's never going to change. I know, Dad. He walked away with his parents. Carolyn didn't look back. Outside the courthouse, the late afternoon sun was warm on my face. We stood on the steps, the three of us looking out at a world that suddenly seemed full of possibility. What now? Emma asked. Now we go home, Jenny said, and we order pizza, and we watch a terrible movie, and we just be together. That sounds perfect. We walked to the car. Jenny drove. Emma sat in the back, already texting her friends about the outcome. I sat in the passenger seat and watched the city pass by outside the window. Mom, Jenny said. Yes. When we get home, will you stay for dinner? Of course. And maybe after that, we could really talk about everything. I'd like that. She reached over and squeezed my hand. Thank you for never giving up on me. I couldn't even if I wanted to. That's not how mothers work. She laughed. It was the first real laugh I'd heard from her in months. We had pizza that night, and a terrible movie, and conversations that lasted until midnight. The three of us together like a family should be. Emma fell asleep on the couch around 1 a.m. Jenny covered her with a blanket and stood there for a moment watching her daughter breathe. "She's going to be okay," she said quietly. "She's going to be better than okay. She's going to be amazing." Jenny turned to me. "Mom, I need to tell you something." "What?" "I've been thinking about what you said, about taking up space, about not being invisible anymore." She paused. "I want to learn how to do that. Not the fake confidence I used to have, but real strength, the kind you have. I don't feel very strong. That's what makes it real." She smiled. "Will you teach me?" "I'll try. But I think you already know more than you realize." We stood there in her living room, mother and daughter, finally seeing each other clearly for the first time in years. "I love you, Mom." "I love you too, Jenny. Always have, always will." She hugged me then, not the stiff formal hug we'd been doing for years, a real one. The kind that says everything words can't express. When I finally drove home that night, the streets were empty and the stars were bright. I thought about everything that had happened since that bus stop, the pain, the anger, the slow, painful work of rebuilding, and I thought about what came next. Not revenge, not bitterness, not holding on to wounds that had already started to heal. Just life, real life, with all its mess and beauty and unexpected grace. I pulled into my driveway and sat in the car for a moment looking at my house. This house that Bill and I had bought 40 years ago. This house where I'd raised my daughter. This house that had felt like a prison and now felt like home again. I went inside and made tea. I sat at my kitchen table and opened my journal. I wrote about the trial, about Jenny's testimony, about the judge's words, about holding my daughter while she cried tears of relief. And at the end, I wrote something that surprised me. I forgive her. Not because she deserves it, not because she's earned it, but because forgiveness is what happens when you finally put down a weight you've been carrying too long. It doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean pretending. It just means choosing to move forward instead of staying stuck. I closed the journal and looked out the window. The sun was starting to rise. Another day, another chance. My phone buzzed, a text from Emma. "Good night, Grandma. Thank you for everything. I love you." I smiled and typed back, "I love you too, sweetheart. See you Saturday." She responded with a heart emoji and a string of exclamation points. I put down the phone and finished my tea. Then I went to bed and slept better than I had in months. When I woke up, the house was quiet and the sun was streaming through the windows. I made coffee and walked outside to check on my garden. The bulbs I'd planted were starting to push through the soil, tiny green shoots reaching for the light. I knelt down and touched them gently. New life, new beginnings, new chances to get it right. A neighbor walked by with her dog. She waved. "Garden's looking good, Maggie." "Thanks." I called back. "It's finally starting to come together." She smiled and kept walking. I stood up and brushed the dirt from my knees. This was my life now. Not the life I'd imagined, not the life I'd planned, but a good life, a full life, a life where I was finally visible again. I went back inside and called Helen. "How did it go?" she demanded before I could even say hello. "We won." "Oh, thank God. I've been pacing since yesterday. Tell me everything." I told her everything. The testimony, the cross-examinations, the judge's decision, Jenny's breakdown, the pizza and the terrible movie and the conversations that lasted until midnight. "I'm so proud of you," Helen said when I finished. "You did something incredible." "I just told the truth." "That is incredible, especially in a courtroom." I laughed. "When can you come over? I need to celebrate with someone who won't judge me for drinking wine at noon." "I'm already on my way." We spent the afternoon on my porch drinking wine and laughing and crying and telling stories about the people we used to be. "You know what I realized?" I said as the sun started to set. "What I spent so many years being invisible because I thought that's what love required. Sacrifice, silence, shrinking yourself to fit into someone else's life. I took a sip of wine. But that's not love, that's fear. Fear of what? Fear of being seen, fear of being rejected for who I really am, fear of taking up space and having someone tell me I don't deserve it. Helen nodded. And now I know the truth. I deserve space. I deserve to be seen. I deserve to be loved for exactly who I am, not who I pretend to be. That's the most beautiful thing you've ever said. I learned it the hard way. The best lessons usually are. And we clinked our glasses together and watched the sun go down. That night I wrote one more entry in my journal. If you're reading this and someone made you feel small in a room you built with your own hands, don't wait for the door to open. Don't wait for them to remember who you are. Stand up, dust off the bench, start walking. You were never meant to be a footnote. You are the whole story. And your story isn't over, it's just beginning.